oh my God, I'm holding everything that they want to do. They just don't know how to do it.
Welcome to summer, unofficially, and welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast, presented by Hippo Direct. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single Wednesday morning who's unleashing creativity to grow their business. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, digital marketing dude at Hippo Direct, and you can reach me at max@hippodirect.com for any help with podcasting or digital marketing. This is episode number 45, and today's guest is Kevin Lane. Quite simply, he's the man who's reinventing the Sandcastle. Or rebuilding, for that matter. He's doing that with his company, Create a Castle. It started out as an innocent idea on the beach, and has now created so much buzz it's been featured on Live with Kelly and Ryan, and is lined up for time on QVC next. How about we make a beach day of it? Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Kevin Lane, the creator of Create a Castle, and the man who's going to be responsible for building more castles than a Bud Light commercial. How you doing today, Kevin?
Good. How you doing, Max? Thanks for having us.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Before we get into it, I do want to shout out our mutual buddy, Brendan O'Mara, BOM. He's the man who was one of our first podcast guests, and we go way back. I know you guys go even more way back. So shout out, Brendan. Thanks for setting us up.
Definitely. Ditto. Thank you, Brendan.
So, Kevin, you're the founder of Create a Castle, which we're going to get into a ton in this episode. And before that, and still, you created your web design business, Codehounds. But for anybody that's not familiar with, can you give a brief background of where you come from and how you got into the business world?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I have a strong background in tech, believe it or not. I really have a stronger background in art, which is kind of how I ended up where I ended up, but graduated from college with a graphic design degree, went to fine arts school for 1 year up at Green Mountain College, but I was skiing more than I was actually going to school, so couldn't continue at that pace.
A fine skiing school.
That's right. So graduated back in the mid-90s, got my first job in publishing, doing a magazine, super excited, about doing covers and spreads for magazines, and then I had a potential offer in New York City to go and work for the startup company called Digital Madness, which was a friend of mine, Joey Neal. And it was basically, the web was starting to blossom at that point. And I realized print was dying, web was exploding. So kind of migrated over quickly into that realm of, the web world and got into website design, website development, and progressed and worked there for about 3 years. And then I went to a company called Internet.com, believe it or not. Which was a public company. I got stock options. It was a super exciting time in the late 90s.
Sounds like a web company, if I had to guess.
It was a web company, no doubt. We managed over 100 and I believe at its peak, 150 different websites on digital marketing and website development and all different, whole slew of things. So from there, I actually went to another job called Life Care for 1 year. And Life Care was more of an architectural kind of position. It was information architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a blend of website design and figuring out how all the servers would communicate together. And then I realized, that's when my entrepreneur genes kicked in. I had all of these people from my prior job saying, hey, can you help me build this website? Can you do this? Can you do that? And realized, what am I doing? Like, I could keep working in a cubicle the rest of my life, or I could take the risk and kind of throw it out there and see what sticks.
Yeah.
So I literally landed my first contract, using all of my connections over the years, and founded Codehounds. And Codehounds, was basically a way for me to break free from the traditional corporate roles and kind of sort my way through the weeds, so to speak, as to how to build a business. So, for the past decade plus, I've been doing Codehounds, built a great, roster of clients, and I had all this free time, so I decided to start up a whole new business called Create a Castle.
Oh, how about that? But let's touch on code hounds first. So, what's the
Sure.
biggest thing? So, I know it's in the web design realm, and you got a wide variety of clients. What's the biggest thing that you focus on?
I don't focus. That's the beauty of it is I don't really focus on one thing per se. We offer everything from website design, building a simple WordPress website, custom WordPress websites, all the way to unique platforms. We can do API work, we can do sysadmin, we can do a little bit of everything because all of the years that I had in the corporate space, I made connections with very, very talented, development staff through those years. And when I need help, I reach out. If there's something that's out of the scope of my work that I can do, then I can basically reach out to anybody who could get nearly anything done from app development to setting up a server.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And I think it's really cool how you've created that first business because you saw a need and because people were coming to you and asking. So it wasn't like you were forcing something into the world or into the market there. Like there was real proof there that this is something that could help people. So that's amazing. When you look at your background, you mentioned part of your background is tech, part of your background is art. Which of those are you more passionate about?
Definitely the art side. So I kind of got pulled into the tech side, not really by choice, but by force, I'd say.
Yeah.
And people saw my ability on both sides of the fence, I guess you could say, and that made me kind of a unicorn in a sense. So
And you look just like a unicorn. No, I'm just kidding.
let me remove my horn.
Yeah.
So basically, it was a situation where people respected my design ability, but also respected my development ability, and melding those two together really benefited me because it gave me a lot of opportunity to grow. Whereas if I just was one dimensional, it probably I still could have gotten a great job and done my thing, but it wouldn't have allowed me to excel at the level that I did.
Yeah, and now you're literally producing things that are three-dimensional. So you've come full circle here. But yeah, what I love about marketing so much is that it combines the strategy side and the creative side. So I've always loved that fusion. And for you, it's the tech and art. So it's another level of that, and you have strong expertise in a couple of different areas. So it's really neat how that really fueled your business. We're going to get to create a castle. First, for anybody who's not familiar with Create a Castle, can you give a little elevator pitch of what it is? I know people might be able to guess from the name, but
Yeah. Yeah. So Create a Castle is essentially a brand new twist on a old school. Everybody's been building sandcastles for decades now.
right.
And we've all used the one-dimensional molds. You bottom fill, you flip. Half the time they work, half the time they don't. And they're so poorly crafted now that the plastic usually hemorrhages even when you flip them and stamp them on the ground. So Create a Castle is the world's first split mold system that is stackable. Doesn't have to be stackable if you're in a situation that you can't stack and coarse sand. It basically is a split mold system, fits into a backpack, gives you all the tools you need to build amazing sand and snow castles literally within minutes.
Yeah, it's magical, and I love how you've expanded it to not just sand, it can be snow too. How'd you come up with the idea in the first place?
It was funny. We were on vacation, and I've been building sandcastles with my kids for years. And each year, I would progressively get better and better on our summer vacations. And it got to a point where my wife is Greek. We have family everywhere. We were like, you know what? Let's go to a vacation in California this year. She has family everywhere. We had a free place to stay. We were like, sounds perfect. We're in SoCal. I have a perfect place. I have an open canvas. And at this point, I would literally be spending 6 to 8 hours on the beach building these elaborate
Holy
sandcastles.
cow.
And, my kids are kind of like, all right, we'll help you for 10 minutes. And then dad won't let us touch it anyway. So, we're going to go in the water and boogie board.
So you might have a castle passion, one would say.
Absolutely. So, long story short, we're on vacation. I literally went to, I think it was an Ace Hardware in Laguna Beach, California, in Southern California. Bought all these tools, hacksaws, and all these things to basically do my thing on the beach. I'm walking down to the beach after I literally cut a 5-gallon bucket, a bottom off. So I had a hollow cylinder
Mm-hmm.
to actually do a form. And I see this dad and his son using one of those bottom fill molds that we just talked about. And they're filling it from the bottom, and they flip it and they lift it, and the sand sticks, and they put it back down. And the second time the dad stamps it so hard, it actually fractured the plastic, lifted again, still not really working. They got, the frustration kicked in, and they just kind of threw it aside. And they were like, yeah, let's just go in the water. And that's when I have my light bulb moment. I said, oh my God, I'm holding everything that they want to do. They just don't know how to do it. How can I simplify it? So that's really the whole idea for Creative Castle was truly born in the beaches, or the beach of Laguna Beach, California, visiting family on a family vacation.
Not a bad spot to create a business or a
No,
castle.
not at all. Not at
Or,
all.
no, or a castle for that matter. But
Definitely.
you just when you're talking through that, I mean, I'm thinking back to my childhood and the time spent building a castle with my family. And yeah, there's a lot there's a lot of nostalgic there about the actual, finished product and all that. But it was a pain. It was a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the easiest thing to do. And what you've done is made that way more easier and more fun. And the final castles turn out looking way better. So you've created an incredible product here. Okay, so you got the idea there. After you had that experience, when did you decide, I'm going to actually turn this into a business?
It was actually when I went home that night, because I've been a guy who always thought of things, but I didn't document things.
Uh-huh.
And, it would be like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I wouldn't actually execute on it. And a year and a half, 2 years later, there was my idea born, like an app or whatever it may have been. I'm like, man, I thought of that like 2 years ago. Why didn't I execute on it? It was one of those moments where I was just like, I got to do this. So I went home, literally started like drafting up, just sketching the concept for Create a Castle literally that night. And lo and behold, because of my web business, I was actually working while I was out there with my web business, because as an entrepreneur, you never really stop working, even while you're on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working with another customer who had this other invention, and he put me in touch with his engineer, Joel Hogue, out of New York City, actually. And I was working with him on, the whole Amazon side of things. And lo and behold, that's how I got in touch with the engineering side of Create a Castle, because I had this communication through my website. The universe basically said, here's an engineer for you. He wants to work.
Yeah, that's convenient.
Yeah, it was really just amazing, the timing of it all.
Yeah. So what does the engineering side look like? I mean, how do you create the creative castles, if you will?
Yeah, so literally I gave him, because I have background in Photoshop, so I took photos of like other objects and modified it and manipulated them in Photoshop and said, okay, here's what I want to do. And then Joel actually started bringing everything that I was giving him in Photoshop into CAD.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went through, literally, it had to be over 100 revisions until we got to the final, yeah, let's do this. But it was, different textures, different designs, some had smooth surfaces, some had windows pre-built, some didn't. So we finally realized, let's just simplify this and just make it a cylinder with a traditional brick pattern that people can kind of use it as an open-ended play system, so that the creativity can be whatever that person wants it to be. It's fully open-ended, and just go hog wild with it.
And who doesn't want to go hog wild?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, the pattern's really cool in itself, because it instantly identifies as a castle. And again, just, thinking back to the childhood and the sandcastles that we used to make, and I'm sure you used to make, it's hard to get a real good looking pattern there. Like, it always endlessly just looks like kind of a clump with not too exciting surface on it.
Exactly.
So the Creative Castle made ones, which I don't know, do you have a name for it? Castles that are made using Creative Castle, or is that in the works?
Yeah, it's still in the work, but basically we started with pack, stack, and play, but we're constantly evolving our tagline as to what we really want it to come out to be.
Yeah, and they come out amazing. And I've seen some on your website and your Instagram. And I'm not sure how many you made yourself and how many are made by others, but some are just 8 feet tall and all sorts of looks like hallways and railways jumping out everywhere. Like it's, I've never seen castles like this.
Yeah, no, they're insane, and that's the beauty of the system is if you have one, so our Pro kit is our lead seller, but if you have multiple Pro kits or even multiple deluxe kits or even multiple mini deluxe kits, they all interface together, meaning you can take a cylinder and invert it and try to stack it on top of another cylinder that you have right below it, because again, you don't need to worry about lifting anything, so you can flare it in or out and unbuckle and split it.
It reminds me of Legos in a way, because thinking back when I used to get Legos and play with them, the whole fun of it was you could get it in certain packs, but really it was just up to your imagination for what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
And there's so much more that you can do. There's so much it's just by nature a super creative thing. You have on your website a ton of different, you mentioned the Pro Pack and some of the other offerings that you have. And I know now you have light bulbs and flagpoles as well. How do you decide what to actually offer to the final consumer?
I really base that upon when I'm out, when it's feet on the ground. When I'm out at the beach, I'll talk to people and I'll say, what would you want? What would you expect out of a system like this? And when I actually do it and I get a reaction, that's when I know move forward with this add-on or this line or whatever the next big idea is for Create a Castle, because it's literally endless. Like I have about 1,500 ideas packed inside of my head for add-ons for this system.
Yeah. And I think what you've done is genius, because you've created an idea in a business here where you can do all your research on the beach and on vacation. So you really cracked the code here.
Yeah, I mean, at first it wasn't even intended to be like that. At first it was just like, I was thinking much more small scale. I was like, I'm going to build like the best castle on a beach super quick and just get people's attention. And then I realized like it turned into market research for me going to the beach.
Yeah.
And, it was like I was getting a response when I first started doing this, I literally only had a machine prototype, and I would be on the beach and it was a black cylinder at that point. And I looked up at one point, and I think it was on the 4th of July up in Massachusetts on a beach somewhere. And I literally had like 30 to 40 people around me watching me do this. And I was like, all right, I'm definitely onto something here.
Right. Yeah. That doesn't just happen normally.
No, definitely not. So it's just really getting out there and kind of doing your market research. And my market research happens to be at a beach or now at ski resorts.
Right. Yeah. So you have the dual season approach as well. So you can make sandcastles, you can make snow castles. Have you ever experimented with any other fun textures like foods or anything else that might stick together?
That's been talked about. I would need something to stop the hemorrhaging, so to speak, for food.
That's true.
I've been contacted by multiple people at some of the trade shows that we've done. And I've had masons come up to me saying, does this work with the concrete? And I'm like, I have no idea, maybe. And they would buy a kit and send me a photo and say, look, it worked. So I also had artists, who do clay molding, purchase it for that specific reason. And it actually, I've seen the outcome of a clay casted, Create a Castle mold. They fired it and everything and sent me photos. It's pretty remarkable to see. It's one of those things you don't even think about again up front, but it just expands into different territories of things you'd never even thought of, which is the incredible thing about an invention.
It is incredible. So you started with sand castles, so now you're on to clay castles and stone castles, and
Yeah.
we'll see if we can get like any bean dip castles or pudding castles or anything.
We'll definitely have to go with a Jello castle, right?
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, we'll do a partnership with Michael Scott there. But you've already in this young lifetime of Create a Castle, you've had some amazing press. I know you were on live with Kelly and Ryan, the video on your website and YouTube, which is very impressive. You've won some awards as well. What's been some of the highlights from a media standpoint so far?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Kelly and Ryan segment was just unbelievable. Little known fact that a lot of people don't even know behind the scenes of that day is I built that castle in the studio. We have a portable table that was on wheels, and I'm building and I get it exactly like I wanted. I got it to perfection. And We slowly roll it away. And then in between, they basically roll out my table right before the segment's going to air. And the guys are like bouncing the table off the wall. And I'm like,
Oh
oh
no.
my God, the whole thing's going to collapse because it's just a sandcastle, I mean, it
Yeah,
has
no pressure. Not like you're on national TV or anything.
exactly. And if it had collapsed before that, they basically would have had a pile of sand, like we were talking about earlier.
Oh,
So,
Rooney Castle. Yeah.
oh, completely dodged a bullet in that sense. But
Wow. Well, I'm glad it stuck together.
yeah, the Live with Kelly and Ryan segment was unbelievable because we didn't even know what to expect. And literally our website was lighting up from all the different, the different time zones. We could literally see the orders kind of coming in from east to Midwest to West. It was just an amazing day, an amazing experience, and an incredible exposure point for Greater Castle.
Wow. And speaking of exposure, I heard some rumors. A little birdie told me that there might be some QVC in your future. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So QVC again happened from doing a hustle and grind. A lot of people will say to me, why do you go to a beach when it's empty? Or why are you going out there so much to beaches if you're not really getting any direct sales from it? And my answer is I'm learning how to use the system better than anyone else on planet Earth. And then
Yep.
when I bring it to present to investors or whoever, I have all the confidence in the world that I'm going to be able to tell the story perfectly. So what happened is we were basically invited to this beach, the Sandcastle event down in Brigantine, New Jersey, just outside of Atlantic City. And it's the Brigantine Sand Sculpting Festival. They've been doing it for years. It's an incredible event. We were like, all right, let's go. We went the night before. We get to Atlantic City a little bit earlier than we had expected. So we're like, let's just go to the beach and try it out. And there was literally, I think we crossed the paths of 3 people that night on the Atlantic City beach. And this woman, Kenya, and her husband walked by. And she stops dead in her tracks and she said, oh my God, what is this? And I start telling her the story just like I'm telling you now. And ends up that she's connected with the folks at iHeartRadio who do a podcast. And she's also connected with this woman, Lisa Ascalise, and all these patent attorneys. And it was just like, again, the universe kind of guided me because it was literally 3 people that crossed our tracks that night, and she just happened to be there. So really how I got into QVC was from going to basically a desolate beach in Atlantic City off season, just by chance, crossed the paths of a right person. And then I met the wonderful Lisa Ascalise, who we're now working with. And she's the one who actually really brought us to QVC. We pitched in front of a buyer at QVC with sand and snow because I have a table that now supports both simultaneously. And she was blown away. The buyer was just like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. So within a week or two, we heard back from the buyer basically saying, yeah, we want you on. Soft date is July 1st. And they call it
This
Christmas
summer.
July. Yep.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's, summer's right around the corner, and that's amazing. That is definitely something huge to look forward to this summer. I'm blown away because your life is basically the line from Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Every time you create a castle, there's some new, amazing, crazy business contact that comes and hooks you up with the right thing. So that's incredible.
Yeah. That may have to be my new tagline.
There we go. Yeah, I'm sure it's not taken.
No, it's not taken.
Yeah. So I have a few more questions on Create a Castle before we get into some other topics.
Sure.
Currently, or at least at the time of this recording, how do you split your time between Create a Castle and Codehounds?
Yeah, so that's been a very, very difficult transition. Just because Codehounds was established, it's my monthly income. So I literally started training my wife how to do front end development, and then I would manage some of the server stuff, and then have some of my friends do all the other various technical things that are out of either of our scopes. So literally, I transitioned by training my wife early on in the development of Create a Castle so that I could kind of shift focus and have her manage all the client expectations of Codehounds and having my support when needed. But she's 90% in control of Codehounds at this point now. I mean, she's literally like designing websites and doing all the front end dev for various clients. So, I kind of kept it in the family, so to speak.
Yeah.
It allowed us to still have that passive income every single month and also kind of have me focus on getting out there, doing the hustle and grind and building a brand new business from scratch, so to speak.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what's the biggest difference that you've seen between designing a website or something in the tech internet world versus designing a physical product?
Oh God, it's night and day. It's a service industry versus a consumer retail industry.
Hmm.
So, expectations with websites have become, is it done yet, as of yesterday?
Yeah.
It's really, things are also almost so automated at this point that it's like
Hmm.
you can almost do it that quickly. Whereas with this business, it was a whole new realm to me. I had never sold anything tangible like that. It's basically, I thought I could just, because I have a strong web background, obviously, I thought I could put my website up and I know how to do all the SEO and I can get people there and I'll just sell the heck out of it. And the reality is, it doesn't work like that.
No.
You really have to kind of, there's a brand awareness. And the problem that I have with Create a Castle and still have to this day is that we're compared to those, the flip bowl buckets, but it's nothing like that. This is such a higher end and different level product. This is Sandcastle on steroids. So
That's got a ring to it too, in a way.
yeah, so it's really it's the hardest part for me was just transitioning. How can I take my web experience and get that message across to people that, look, stop buying the junk and buy something that you're not going to leave on the beach and pollute the beach with. Let's sell a higher end product that you're going to have tons of fun with your family. You're going to get results and you're not going to pollute the beach in the process.
That's great. And speaking of automation, I know some of the history of Create a Castle involves 3D printing. Can you touch on that for a little bit?
Absolutely. So I have a friend, again, Joey Neal, going back to the Digital Madness days, my first web job. He transitioned into the 3D printing space over the years, and he was working for MakerBot at the time. So he found out what I was doing, and I would go over to his house and say, look at this, like, here's the CAD file. Do you think we can do this in 3D print? He would make the corrections needed for 3D printing to add the supports and everything. And literally, I was ripping out prototypes almost overnight on 3D prints just because it's that fast. I mean, 3D printing is an amazing technology that allows inventors to do rapid prototyping in hours at some time. Depending on the printer that you have, you can literally have your prototype in hours.
Wow.
So 3D printing really changed my world and saved me so much time and effort and capital because, I had this friend at MakerBot and he's just like, give it to me. I'll print whatever you need. And he wasn't even charging me at the time. So, it was literally just one of those situations again that just worked out perfectly. And, again, the early prototypes that I had partially machined, and then the top cylinder that I had was actually 3D printed all the way up until I don't even know if I ever had a machined 6-inch cylinder ever made because the 3D printout worked fine. It got the job done. And instead of buckles, I was actually using like clamps from Home Depot to actually keep the seal closed. But you improvise and you make it work and you get the results. And 3D printing was perfect for that. I mean, for an inventor and prototyping, there is no substitute. 3D printing is a miracle technology, so to speak.
It is. How much of your inventory these days is 3D printed versus whatever other manufacturing means you use? I'm not too sure.
0%. So all of the manufacturing that we're doing now is truly manufactured. We manufacture out of mold in Taiwan.
Okay.
So 3D printing is great for rapid prototyping, but the problem is the filament plastic that you're using is fairly cheap and it would warp if it's in the sun and that kind of stuff. I didn't want to have to worry
Okay.
about that. So I ended up opting to go the traditional manufacturing route, though we may be releasing certain parts that could be 3D printed with our technology in the very near future.
Yeah, it makes sense. It just seems like a crazy good way to try out stuff. And even if it's not what you end up finally using,
Yeah.
and it definitely helps to have that connection at MakerBot as well. I'm sure you met him by just building a castle and he just came up out of nowhere too, right?
No, actually, he was again just a longtime friend, Joey Neal, who got me my first web job in New York City that back in the digital madness days.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're still in the digital madness days. So
Yeah, definitely.
full circle again.
Hey, Wild listeners, have you been wanting to start a podcast for yourself or your business but didn't know where to start? Or do you have a podcast of your own but you're struggling with the time commitment? I'd love to help. Shoot me an email at max@hippodirect.com with any podcasting questions you have. I'm also happy to jump on a 30-minute call where we can discuss your idea, planning, production, promotion, and other elements of the podcasting world. Let your podcast run wild.
Let's move to a section on inspiration and creativity. So think about things that inspire you, ways you stay creative. And your company is a creative company by nature. So I'm looking forward to this. What do you do to stay creative?
I'll throw this way. I'm going to go back in a Wayback Machine here. So
Okay.
this kind of ties into the story of Sandcastle. I actually grew up in a bakery, literally
Really?
inside of a bakery. My mom and my grandmother ran this bakery out of their house called Heidi's Cake and Cookie Shop. And, I'm a twin. So there was two of us running around inside of this bakery, hoping that we wouldn't knock over their tiered wedding cakes that are, worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars back in the day. And this is how they're making their living. So long story short, growing up in a bakery, I'm constantly watching them use their springform pans and all the different tiered tools that it took to kind of build these elaborate wedding cakes to quiet me as a kid. So I always had a passion for art. My mom started getting me these books called Draw 50. And I would sit there and open the book and learn how to draw different various structures. But mostly what I drew was castles inside of this book. So you go back until I'm about 7 to 8 years old, give or take. This is all happening. Flash forward this many years later, and you put two and two together and you're like, oh my God, like if you think about it, I invented something for the sand that really kind of translates into cakes.
Yeah.
It's just, I know that's kind of off topic of.
No, that's incredible. Like, it's amazing that castles and this art and the creativity side of things has had such a big impact on your life. It's clearly some of what you've done here currently is drawn from that childhood experience.
No doubt. And flash forward now, I keep my creativity alive really by using this system and learning how to use it in new ways that, certain people may not think about. For instance, I'll even watch kids just to learn. I'll literally hand them one of my tools and say, use it. And I'll watch kids because kids are the ones with truly an open mind and true open imagination. So I'll sit there and I'll watch them and I'll learn from them. I mean, I saw one kid, I didn't even think of this, but he took a half cylinder, threw a bunch of sand and started rolling the half cylinder and he made like this whole tunnel. And I'm like, oh my God, you can use the half cylinders as tools as well. Like it was one of those aha moments where, just by watching a kid and seeing how they interact with the system, that's really my creative inspiration is just watching others and see how they interact with the platform, because I'm not so close-minded where I think I know it all. I realize that people are going to use this tool in a totally different light than ways that I would. So that's really my creative inspiration is watching others and obviously, listening to a bunch of good music.
Yeah. Well, Brendan, when he came on the podcast, he mentioned a very similar thing, which was think like a child. Like when you get yourself to think like a child, your imagination and creativity just totally runs wild there. So for you, it's almost market research.
Yeah, definitely.
What about music? I mean, you brought up music. What kind of music are you into?
I've always been into all kinds of music types. There's no specific genre that I'm tied to. Mm-hmm. I've listened to metal back in the 80s, to hip hop, to rap. I'm really, really, again, I'm kind of an open-ended mentality because I don't want to channel myself down one type of music type. Really, like there's an alternative channel on Spotify. I think it's called the New Alt channel or something like that. It's just, I'll play it and I'll listen to new music almost weekly because they just constantly layer in what they think is a new sound. And you don't even realize it sometimes, but by listening to new music and new sounds, it could actually inspire you and spark ideas in your head.
I completely agree. And I'm blown away by Spotify. I mean, I'm a huge Spotify fan as well, and they have just nailed it. Like, they've totally exceeded everybody's expectations on, I don't know if you call it artificial intelligence or what, but taking what people like and then creating stations and genres and playlists off of that and consistently delivering new customized playlists for you. Like, they've totally personalized everything. You know, it works for alternative, which I love as well. It works for any music type. They've got it for you. So totally. I'm listening to music all the time as well. Well, now listening to plenty of podcasts as well, of course.
Definitely, as you should be, because that's your inspiration.
Right. Exactly. How about people? So who, you mentioned your mom and grandma, of course, were very inspirational to you growing up in the whole bakery side of things. What about nowadays in the business world? Who do you look at that inspires you now?
Not so much the business world, believe it or not. I watch the sand sculptors. The professional sand sculptors are actually a big inspiration to me
Makes sense.
because, when I see what they're doing in the sand now, like, it's just surreal what they can pull off now. It's like Michelangelo was reborn through these people. I swear to God, like the things that they can sculpt out of sand is just, it's gravity defying. And so what I do is I keep very close eyes on all of the professional sand sculptors for new inspiration, for new ideas to integrate into this platform called Create a Castle, because this product has very many legs. And by looking at what they're doing and seeing the reaction of the audience as to what they're doing, I could actually integrate some of that into this system that I have going.
And so how does if someone wants to follow these sandcastle extraordinaires, and you're one yourself, so don't discredit yourself. How do you get on this circuit or stay in touch with these amazing creations? Because they really are out of this world.
Facebook, social media, Instagram, especially. Instagram's incredible because, you could type in sandcastles as a keyword and it's going to pick up hashtags. It's going to pick up users. It's going to pick up everything you need to find that medium. So it's gotten to a point now where I'm actually going to Sandcastle events and I'm a vendor at them. And then I'm
Yeah,
meeting, I'm physically meeting a lot of these guys and they're just blown away by what I'm doing with Create a Castle. They're really getting behind it. So
that's perfect.
it is. It's a perfect forum because it's not like I'm competing with them. This is more recreation. This is really about family engagement, family fun in a whole new way. I don't want this to be a platform where mom and dad just hand off the kit to the kid and say, go play. I want this to be like I saw on Laguna Beach that day, the dad and the son, or the mom and the son, or daughter, or whoever it is, interacting together, engaging together as a family, because that is so important in the world that we live in right now.
Yeah, that's really special. And is there a sort of Super Bowl of sandcastle building?
Yeah, we've been at 3 of them last year. So we started at Riviera Beach, which was back in August, and that I believe gets close to 500,000 people in a 3-day event.
Oh my God.
It was huge. I mean, it was just almost out of control in my little 10 by 10 tent. It was
Yeah.
tons of publicity and perfect exposure point because let's face it, all the people there are there for a very specific reason. They love the art of sandcastles. So most of them walking by would stop and see what's going on. So we started at that particular event. We worked our way down south into Virginia Beach to the Neptune Festival. That gets, I think, about 300,000 to 400,000 people in 3 days.
Also not too shabby.
Yeah, not too shabby. And then we went down to beautiful Florida, Siesta Key Crystal Classic, which is,
Oh, right.
oh my God, that beach is just, that's sanded. They didn't, so a little known fact is a lot of the beaches that these guys are sculpting on, the sand is so coarse that they can't even really do their thing properly. So they'll import sand from quarries. But Siesta Key is such perfect sand, they don't even have to. They literally just use the native sand right on the beach at Siesta Key. It's a quartz-based beach.
Oh, Wow. I definitely did not anticipate courts being brought up. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. Let's move on to a fan favorite segment here called the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
Wild Business Shout Out of the Week. This is where we talk about a recent marketing campaign that caught our attention and chat about it for a little bit. So there's a pretty famous brand that you mentioned earlier that did something involving sandcastles. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So Geico has really, really had a successful campaign, a whole series of campaigns, quite honestly, over the past decade. But most recently, they had a commercial called Life's a Beach, and it was about this dad and his son, again, using the flip mold buckets. And,
Of course.
it was a situation where the guy next door to him is building this amazing castle. And every time that they would flip back to that guy, his castle kept getting bigger and bigger and more elaborate, talking about how he could save money using Geico. So their campaigns are so effective at what they do because there's comedy involved, but there's also reality talking. They're getting the message across that you're saving money in the process, but it's just a whole great slew of campaigns that they've pushed out over the past 5 to 10 years. It's just been an incredible series.
It has. Yeah. And there's so many memorable ones, and they've created like different subsects within it. They got all the caveman ones. They have the gecko ones. Obviously they have the hump day one, which was like maybe one of the most viral ever.
Yep.
People still say that damn camel.
Yep.
But yeah, talk about branding. And obviously they're spending a ton of money behind this. It's not like this is free advertising, but they are really making it count. And everybody knows what Geico is now. And it's something that traditionally is not really like a sexy company if you look at it, but their advertising is very sexy. And not literally, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And their branding is so powerful that I actually got a story from earlier this year. So earlier back in late March of this year, so my parents are snowbirds now and they spend time between Florida and Ohio. And so my grandparents who live in Cleveland, they came down for the first time to visit my parents down in Florida. And I came down as well. And some of my cousins and other family members came down as well. But anyway, there's some geckos down there. Mm-hmm. And my grandma Adele, so shout out Adele and Henry, my grandma Adele sees one and goes, "Oh, there's a Geico." Yep. Their branding is so powerful that she has replaced the word gecko in her vocabulary with Geico.
Yeah.
Because of those commercials. So that just shows how strong it is. But again, that commercial was perfect for you. I mean, everywhere you go involves castles, it seems. And even on TV, it ties back to your passion. So it's really interesting. And so of course that one caught your attention.
Yeah, absolutely. There's obviously been others. You mentioned a lot of them, Maxwell the Pig, Caveman.
Oh yeah, shout out Max.
Then you had the squirrels with the car that veers off the road. You had the new one, Spy. There's just so many layers. And I'm not sure who the ad agency is that's doing this, but whoever it is.
It was actually me doing all of them, but
wow, you're a genius because my God, it's
very time consuming. No, I'm not sure who it is, but I'll have to look it up and include it in the show notes because they do a heck of a job. I wouldn't be surprised if they used a few different ones over the years, but who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long time. Okay. So only got a little bit of time left. Wrap up with a couple fun, more random sections. So this one here is called The Unusual: Pet Peeves, Quirks, and Weird Talents. Mm-hmm. So Kevin, what's your biggest pet peeve?
I'd say people who talk on cell phones while they're driving. And another one is bullies. Don't like bullies and don't like people who talk on cell phones while they're driving.
So if it's a bully who's talking on their cell phone while driving, you really don't like them.
Yeah, I'll start hitting my horn and getting super aggressive,
Yeah. It's funny. Well, it's interesting. I mean, some states it's legal, some states it's not legal to talk on the cell phone. But any way you slice it, you are somewhat, at least a little bit distracted when you're talking on the phone.
Definitely.
Now at least it helps that so many cars are integrated with Bluetooth and you can at least be speaker, not hold it up to your head. But yeah, I definitely get that.
The biggest pet peeve is texting while driving. That one just
Yeah,
puts me over the edge.
that's definitely a bad one. Yeah. How about quirks?
Mhm.
So anything, and this might be, completely outside of the castle world, anything that your kids or your wife kind of calls you out for that's a little bit quirky, but it's just part of your personality. And there's no shame.
Absolutely.
There's no shame here.
Absolutely. So I'm having a very difficult time with this conversation actually because I'm plugged in with a headset. But normally, whenever I'm talking to somebody, I'm pacing back and forth and back and forth. It's just one of those things that as I talk, it just makes me more comfortable to walk. I don't know why, but I'll literally be
Yeah.
upstairs and I'm almost burning a hole in the carpet, just walking back and forth. My wife's like, "What were you doing?"
I'm actually the same way. Yeah. So this fun. Well, appreciate you. Appreciate you staying in one place for this. We got to find a way to make it easier to walk around and talk for podcasts while keeping the quality. I know you can do it, but obviously quality is best if you're almost treat it like a studio. But I'm the same way. Whenever I'm talking on the phone, I feel like I run like 3 miles while I'm doing it. it's,
Yep.
it just helps. And I've noticed, I don't know if you're doing it now, but like I've noticed while I record podcast interviews, like my feet are constantly moving and I'm kind of, even though I'm sitting, I'm moving in some sorts and I have to be careful about what the mic picks up and all that, because if you like knock on the table too much, the mic can pick it up and things like that. So it's funny. I
Totally.
definitely get that. How about weird talents? Obviously you're really good at making castles, which is super special for your business.
Hmm.
How about other things? Anything else that you're really good at, but maybe doesn't have that much utility or business gain for you? Like any random talents like that?
Yeah, I mean, during the process of Creative Castle, I had to do things I didn't even realize I had talents in. For instance, I had to build a whole custom TV stand for some of our events to put a looping video on because their product is so demonstrative. I'm like, let's do a video.
Yeah.
We didn't have a stand that I could find that I really liked and it was the right height, so I literally built a whole a custom TV stand out of old pallets. I went
Wow.
down to Agway and I was like, "Hey, do you guys have any old pallets you want to get rid of that are weathered?" They're like, "Yeah, there's a giant pile right there." And I went home and started sawing it up and put a whole custom like TV stand together that allows me to put my computer behind it and loop the video on the TV.
That's amazing. And
Yeah,
Brendan actually spoke about woodworking too. So I think there's just something about you Connecticut guys in woodworking that you're just super good.
it's got to be us IHS guys, Immaculate High School, because I went to high school with Brendan.
Yeah.
It just must be you got the whole Jesus Carpenter thing going on. I don't know.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's get wild. If you had to describe your style of sandcastle building, how would you describe it in the simplest way as possible?
Game of Thrones.
Okay, there we go. Pretty grand one. Okay, so you're not allowed to use that answer, but what's your favorite book or movie or show that involves a castle? What else comes to mind?
Oh wow. Harry Potter.
That's a good one. Yeah, nostalgia is strong with that one. I thought you were going to say Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle.
That would have been epic if I did say that, right?
Yeah. On that note, you basically grew up in a bakery. What's your favorite bakery treat?
Oh man, I'm a bakery snob now. It's tough. I would say probably macadamia cookies. Yeah, I love those.
Not bad. Not bad. And you've mentioned Siesta Key, which is a phenomenal beach. You've been to tons of beaches. Outside of making castles, what's your favorite thing to do on the beach?
Boogie board with my kids.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. We used to go to Myrtle Beach all the time and that was like took up summers. It's so fun.
Yeah, I actually just came from Myrtle Beach. What a beautiful beach.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Are you a good boogie boarder?
I'm halfway decent, but then my kids started like doing circles around me as I got older. So I'm like, all right, I'm not so good.
Yeah, I think that's what happens anyway.
Yeah.
Uphill battle. But all right. Well, thank you, Kevin. This has been amazing. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. It's so cool to track the growth of Create a Castle. And I'm sure we'll pick up even more after this summer in the QVC experience. So appreciate you coming on.
Definitely. Thanks for having us, Max. And You can find us at createacastle.com. All the information is there. All the social media networks will be all right there. We even have a feed up there. And you can feel free to contact me at info@createacastle.com or klane@createacastle.com.
Great. And you read my mind with the question. So thank you for providing where to best reach you. And now the stage is yours. Any final thoughts you want? A quote, or it could be whatever you want. Final thoughts to send us off. Go for it.
Yeah, everybody get outside, have fun, and create some killer sandcastles with Create a Castle this summer.
I think we can build on that. Thank you, Kevin, for coming on the podcast. And thank you, Wild listeners, for tuning into another episode. If you'd like to build on the stories, ideas, and castles discussed in this episode, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite app and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can soak up more creative inspiration at hippodirect.com/blog and hippodirect.com/newsletter. That newsletter is the Hippo Digest, and it's your weekly recap of creative marketing from all around the web. And of course, come say hey at your favorite social media platform at the handles HippoDirect and Max Brandstetter. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!